There is this tiny little device that has changed the entire industry, and in fact, the entire world. It's in almost every appliance you see. It's probably lighting up the room you are in right now. In 1975, a Russian inventor named Oleg Losev discovered light emission from a block of silicon carbide. And then, in 1962, a man called Nick Holonyak Jr., an American scientist working at General Electric, was working on infrared LEDs like the type you'd see on older TV remote controllers. And while in that process, he created the first visible light LED, which emitted a red light. He used gallium arsenide phosphide, GaAsP, as the semiconductor material. Years later, he became known as the father of LEDs. His discovery opened the door to a multitude of practical applications. In the decades that followed, other researchers and companies started contributing to expanding the LED's capabilities. But at this period, LEDs could only be used for simple applications like indicator lights. That's because they were very dim and had a limited variety of colors. During this period, TVs and other display types ran on cathode ray tubes, or CRTs, which draw so much power and generate a lot of heat as there was no realistic method of generating bright light from electricity aside these tungsten filament bulbs. Although in 1972, a man called George Crawford, a former student of Holonyak, invented the first yellow LED and significantly improved the brightness of red LEDs. The gap between LEDs then and what we have today is still like traveling to the moon. Here is why. Blue LEDs were the only way to achieve white LEDs, and blue LEDs were seen as practically impossible. Well, that's until another scientist called Shuji Nakamora entered the picture in 1993. He basically came up with the blue LED, which led to the creation of the white LED, and just like that, boom, LEDs were everywhere, replacing flashlights, light bulbs, vehicle headlamps. But none of these evolutions were as fascinating as what happened in the TV manufacturing industry. There was this pivoting moment where LCD TVs became known as LED TVs. That's because, before the invention of the blue and white LED, LCD TVs primarily used cold cathode fluorescent lamps, or CCFLs. CCFLs are long, thin tubes filled with mercury vapor and coated with phosphors. When an electric current passes through them, they emit ultraviolet UV light, which then interacts with the phosphor coating to produce visible light. Away from all the blabbing and technical mumbo-jumbos, remember these little fluorescent tubes? And that's basically what was installed behind LCD TVs to light up the screen. Like you already guessed, these were quickly replaced by LEDs, creating a point in history where LCD TVs will be reintroduced to the market as LED TVs. Personally, I've always had a problem with this name. Firstly, when LCDs were lit up by these fluorescent tubes, they were not known as fluorescent TVs, because everyone knew that backlighting wasn't the major part of the display. Secondly, there are actual LED displays, popular in the advertising industry, that make use of real LEDs on the display itself. The LEDs are just tiny enough to combine colors like a regular LCD display. So when you hear micro LED, it has nothing to do with so-called LED TVs, but everything to do with LED displays. And here is where it gets tricky. Just like shrinking the size of LED backlights on LED TVs produced mini LED TVs, shrinking the LED pixels on an LED display would give you micro LED. Micro LED allows LED displays to be used on TVs as opposed to just electronic billboards, and might just be the perfect display to take out OLED. That's because micro LEDs have superior brightness, and that's why LED displays have been the best option for outdoor display advertising. Also, the LEDs in micro-LEDs are inorganic and would not degrade over time. In other words, no burn-in. That gives it a longer overall lifespan of up to 100,000 hours. In terms of contrast, like OLED, each pixel lights up itself, providing deep blacks and infinite contrast ratios, similar to OLED but with more precise control. Anyway, here is the most amazing thing about micro-LED. They can be built into tiles like what we've seen in Samsung's The Wall. Nevertheless, there are still many hindrances to micro-LED, like the high cost of manufacturing and the fact that making smaller screen sizes would be very difficult to manufacture. This is of course due to the amount of precision needed to install such a tiny size of LEDs. Until there is an improvement in the manufacturing process, micro-LEDs might only be available in bigger screen sizes only. Until then, we keep waiting.